This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7 p.m. The date is September 9, 2008, and the meeting is called to order at this time. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates. An alternate takes full part in discussions of the board and becomes a voting member in the absence or conflict of interest of a regular member. This evening we have 2 new alternate members who are going to be sworn in when the mayor arrives. Meantime, present this evening then are John Golsey, Betty Hollow, Greg Lavelle, alternates from the right, Lisa Carson and Joan Kronansky, who will be sworn shortly. I'm Muriel Frederick, chair. This evening, both of our new members will be voting because for one of the cases, Ms. Kronansky will not be voting because she has a conflict of interest. Also present from the Code Enforcement Office this evening is Paul Eschenbacher, right? Yeah, and not Chalkner. All right. The board operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. A code enforcement representative will cite specifics of the refusal. The appellant or a representative then will state the case for granting the appeal. Testimony next will be taken from those who support granting the appeal, then those who wish to speak in general comment, and those who support denial of the appeal. Following all testimonies, the board will receive concluding remarks from the appellant. Discussion from the floor then will be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. Under Athens City Code, Section 230703B, the board has the power to grant such variances from the code as will not be contrary to the public interest, so that the spirit of the code shall be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. Athens City Code Section 230910C requires that variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the evidence provided to it that the following 6 criteria are met. Practical difficulty or undue hardship is the first one. There must exist a practical difficulty or undue hardship caused by exceptional conditions pertaining to the specific piece of property. Exceptional circumstances. There must exist exceptional circumstances or conditions applying to the property or its intended use that do not in general apply to properties in the same zoning district. And number 3, a preservation of equal property rights. It must be determined that literal interpretation of the code would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same vicinity, while granting the variance would not convey a special privilege. Number 4, it must be a minimum variance. It must be determined that the variance is the minimum required to make reasonable use of the property. Number 5, an absence of detriment. It must be determined the granting of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties, nor materially impair the purposes of the code or the public interest. And last, it must be not of a general nature. The variance sought must be of not a general or recurring nature, such that the situation would more reasonably be handled by changing the law. Normally, the way we present our cases for a decision is in a positive way. Someone moves to grant a variance. Moving to grant does not commit the board to granting the variance. It simply offers the variance for consideration. The board is empowered to hear and decide applications for conditional use, substitution for non-conforming use, temporary uses, and appeals where it's alleged by the appellant there's an error in the decision made by the zoning administrator regarding enforcement and interpretation of the code, as well as requests for interpretation of the code. Any person who is aggrieved by the decision of the board may file an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the board's resolution to the appellant. This evening there are 4 cases on the agenda. There's number 0820S for 19 South Congress Street, which is zoned R3. Jack Stouffer is the appellant. Then there's 0821V for 71 Maplewood Drive, which is zoned R1. Steve Howard is the appellant. Number 0822T for 30 Westfield Place, zoned R3. Cecilia Hansen is the appellant. And number 0823V for 721 Central Avenue, which is zoned R1. Heather McDowell is the appellant. The board is required by law to take testimony under oath. Anyone wishing to speak, please stand to be sworn. Do you swear that the testimony you will give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, we do have the 4 cases. We still do not have our 2 newest members sworn, but what we're going to do is to proceed. They will be able to listen, comment, and so on, until it comes time for us to make our decision. At that time, if they haven't yet been sworn, then we're going to be operating with a board of 4 people, which should not present a problem, I don't believe, unless somebody here would rather be heard by the full board of 5, in which case you'd be able to have your case continued until next month. You don't have to decide just yet. We're really thinking that the mayor's going to be here any minute now. So that's the option, however, that exists. Okay, our first case is 0820S, standing for substitution, for 19 South Congress Street, zoning R3, and Jack Stouffer is the appellant. Would you like to cite any specifics of the refusal that you think need to be commented on?
Just for the record, my name is Paul Eschenbacher. I'm the acting secretary, but in place of the zoning administrator, I'll be presenting facts about the cases. This case is pretty much identical to the one you heard 2 months ago. 2 months ago, Mr. Stauffer has a property at 19 South Congress with 3 separate buildings on it. 2 months ago, he asked first for an interpretation to see if changing from 4 apartments to 2 constitutes a change of use, which would necessitate coming before the board. And it was agreed that it is a change of use. So you gave him a substitution so that he could go ahead with the project. This is for the rear building, or the one closest to South High Street. The rear building is pretty much identical to the middle building. So as far as I know, the work that Mr. Stauffer wants to do will be identical as well. I've also inspected the middle building since the last meeting. He did renovate it. It's 2 units. It's all the safety things. Everything's up to standard condition. So it was approved for the 2 units. I don't believe there's anything else to offer unless you have any questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions? I was present for the last one, and you were present for the last one, and you were present for the last one, right. Were you also? So all 4 of us were part of that original decision on the first part of the project. All right, thank you very much then.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Stouffer, would you like to make your presentation now? And please do affirm that you previously have been sworn.
I've been sworn. I'm going to tell you the truth, all the truth.
Okay.
My name's Jack Stauffer. I live at 62 Sunnyside. I want to take about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to first apologize for being here again, but give you a little background as to how I came to be here. I've been sworn in. I'm going to tell you the truth. I hope with the past information and results from being here in June for the same property but a different building, that this evening will be a mere formality. However, after seeking advice, I must make a matter of public record all the facts I'm aware of in case this matter goes to the next level. I need to provide to you with all the information I have as to how I came before you this evening. I'd now like to present to you documents that will help the chain of events unfold and transpire that leads to my appearance here.
Okay, Mr. Stouffer, you were told that in case you had not, your appeal wasn't granted, that you need to go through the entire appeals process exactly as you did before, again, because in case it has to be appealed to the court of common pleas, then you need to have everything on record. Is that my understanding?
That's
Yes.
the reason I'm going to give you this
Okay,
little
I'm
bit
sorry
of
that you have to be
information
put
that
through
was
all
not-
that, but I understand why.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for you guys too, because it's going to be long and methodical. But I'm going to bring up a packet of information for you. As I think you folks are aware, at least most of you, the two new members, of course, were not aware, that I had renovated the first building, or the building closest to Congress Street, which you will see on the plat map there. And that renovation was done with proper building permits in the summer of '04 and the summer of '07, being completed in the summer of '07. And like I say, I got the correct building permits, and we went over at the last meeting how I obtained those building permits and the fact that I was denied the same said building permits, which brought me to the meeting in June, which now brings me back to the meeting tonight. But what I became aware of, and what I want to make you aware of, so in case this isn't the end of the line tonight, is the fact that I became aware that River Park Towers, formerly known as Lakeview Apartments, had a very, very similar case to mine. They submitted their application on April the 17th, and I submitted my application on April the 21st. Mine was refused on May the 2nd. Theirs was approved on May the 20th. Now, as best I could ascertain from the information that I could get from the code office and the mayor's office and the service safety director's office, both River Park Towers and 19 South Congress are R3. Both were interior work only. Both had no change in the footprint. Both had a shortage of parking, and both had no increase in occupancy. But somehow they got approved and I didn't get approved. Now, I'm not here to assume or imply anything. I'm merely passing along the information, because if I don't say it here tonight and we go to court, I'm not allowed to say it in court. But I'm hoping this is just the end of here this evening, of course. And in the packet of information you received, and I won't go through it all, but there's several emails back and forth between the service safety director, the mayor, the code director, and Nick Carr in regards to my project and River Park Towers project. I reiterate, I was refused within 12 days. They were approved on the 31st or 32nd day. I won't say they were singling me out for the test case, but I'm the test case. I have one bit of information and we'll get right into my case. Government has a duty to treat all of its citizens equally. What we see here is the unequal treatment of the same issue at the same time. Large entity or small entity, it is the responsibility and duty of government to treat all people equally. Okay. I'm done with that. I'm going to read most of this stuff to you just like I did the last time, because I get nervous and I get mixed up, and it's important to me for this to pass, and it's important to me to get all the facts out to you, and it's important to me that you understand everything that I say. So at any point in time, if I'm not clear, ask me a question, because the facts are on my side, and I want to get them all out so we can make the proper decision here this evening. I do have 6 letters of support from my neighbors that you contacted, and we can read them into the record as we did last time if we wish at the proper time.
Are these
we
new
can-
letters, or are these the letters from before?
These are the exact same letters as before,
Okay.
and all the people that wrote them are aware that I'm here tonight, and they're all still
in favor of this project as well.
In favor of this project, the same as the others. In any event, I can read those to you, or you can read one or two yourself at the proper time. Just a little background, like before, I'm from the Athens area. I've worked and been a taxpayer here since July of 1970. I'm not a big landlord in town, but I have a few, or several units, and all of my units over the last 7 years they've always been up to code, and they've all been completely renovated, remodeled, updated with all the newest roofs, windows, heating, cooling, plumbing, electric, drain lines, appliances, and so on. All my properties at all the different addresses, including Phase 1, which was the Congress Street building, and Phase 2, which is the building you approved in June, of which I completely renovated between June 16th and August 30th. And Ms. Frederick did have a chance to take a look at that unit today. But anyway, if you look at the, there's a plat map in there that shows you the 3 buildings, and the one that's in the shaded building, the one in the rear, the one nearest High Street, is the one that we're talking about here this evening. The front house has been completely done, the middle building has been completely done, and now I want to not bring up to code, my building is up to code, but bring up to today's standards the building in the rear. And I wanted to get my building permit in place, so if there was any work that I could accomplish over winter break or spring break to get a jump on the situation, that's what I want to do. I had Mr. Bill Morgan draw up those plans that you're looking at there, although they're just a set of flat floor plans. You'll look on one side and they're marked proposed improvements, and that would be the building we're going to do, and the other building and the other floor plan is the building that was recently completed this summer. The floor plans are very similar. I'm simply removing one kitchen on each level and cutting a hole through a wall to enlarge and reconfigure slightly. The bedrooms are in the same places, the bathrooms are in the same places, the living rooms are in the same places. The kitchen and living room are kind of combined and expanded to make a nice big area, and to add all the amenities that today's consumer requires, which is central air, washers and dryers, dishwashers, garbage disposers, etc., etc. Updating all the plumbing and all the electric. That's my intention. That's what I want to do. That's the reason I'm here. The facts, I believe, are in my favor, and with your folks' endorsement, I'll be able to upgrade the quality of my property and raise up my property values, which in turn will create more tax income for the community. I've prepared all the answers and explanations for the 6 points that I would need should I be going for a variance, which of course I'm not. I'm going for a less objectionable, or not more objectionable, non-conforming use, but I have all that information. I've contacted all my neighbors with the exception of Mr. Singley, who would be to my immediate north, and I've left messages a couple times, and Mr. Singley or Mrs. Singley, whoever, hasn't contacted me. But by their absence, I'll assume that they'd have no objections. And I have letters from all the other people that are my neighbors, as well as from Mr. and Mrs. Edward Robe, who previously owned a property for 29 years before I did, and from Mr. Melvin Stedman, who is a former code director. So if you want to hear those letters, I'll start reading them. If you don't want me to read them, I won't take up your time. I don't want to hurt my case by not reading them. You tell me.
I think that it would not hurt for you to read the letters so that you have them in the record. You did have good support for this, and
Okay, the first letter is from Patrick Rose. If you look at the plat map, you'll see just to the north on the Congress Street side, a building that is probably marked Church Apartments. and that's what Mr. Patrick Rose owns. The letter reads, Athens Zoning Board of Appeals. I've known Jack Stauffer for many years and feel compelled to contribute a few words concerning his situation at 19 South Congress. I also own the property directly next door at 15 South Congress. Over the years, Jack has continuously worked to improve his rental properties. He is personally involved in renovations and mechanical updates and knows how to get the job done right. He does quality work and takes pride in the results. Since there is no change in occupancy requested, I fully support Jack's efforts to enhance the housing stock of Athens. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Patrick Rose. I have a letter here from Beta Theta Pi. Their address is 23 South Congress. That's the fraternity house to the immediate south of my property on the High Street side. To the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, Jack approached me recently and informed me of his difficulty gaining permission to improve his property, which is next door to our Beta Theta Pi fraternity house. Jack has been a good neighbor the past 10 years, and Les and I, that's Les Cornwell, as board members have no objections to his current request to update his property. We do not believe it would be a detriment to our fraternity house or neighborhood, but to the contrary would help further the improvement of the housing available in and around the near campus. Please consider Mr. Stauffer's wish to improve his property for his interests, his future renters' convenience and safety, as well as upgrading the neighborhood and the city where we all live, work, and enjoy. That's signed by Eric Kuhn. Back across the High Street from me, I have a couple neighbors. The first one is Demetrius Prokos. Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, thank you for notifying me of Mr. Stauffer's upcoming case. I would like to let you know that I have no objections to his upcoming project at 19 South Congress. If Jack is allowed to improve his property, it will help with the city's goals stated in the comprehensive plan to upgrade the housing stock, thus enhancing all surrounding neighborhood property values. Respectfully, Demetrius Prokos. The next one is from Cody Reynolds, Mr. James Cody, Board of Appeals. Cody Reynolds has several properties across the street from Jack's property. As an adjoining property owner, we have no objection to his desire to remodel his property. We also have some concerns that are more global in nature. If property owners are not able to renovate older properties in an efficient and economical manner, there will be consequences. Failure to renovate older properties will result in a gradual but real decline in the overall quality of rental housing in Athens. Please note that remodeling an older unit usually demands a great deal of removal of old plumbing, wiring, bathrooms, and kitchens. This is both expensive and complicated in older units. Some flexibility in moving walls around, etc., is vital. We believe that as long as the total number of tenants is preserved in a given property, then such flexibility should be allowed and even encouraged in order to ultimately upgrade Athens property. I urge you to approve his appeal. Back to the High Street side, across High Street from the back of my property where my parking lot is, and next door to Mr. Prokos' property is property owned by Leon Hoschauer. Dear Zoning Board members, I own 21 South High Street, which is located across High Street from the rear of Mr. Stauffer's property at 19 South Congress. As I understand the situation, Mr. Stauffer would like to remodel an existing structure from 4 one-person units into 2 two-person units. Both the total number of allowable occupants and the total number of parking spaces would remain the same under the existing situation and the proposed improvement. Consequently, this proposed change would have no impact on the population density nor the parking situation of the neighborhood. Therefore, this proposed change would have no adverse impact on my property at 21 South High. Mr. Stauffer plans to invest a good deal of money in his proposed improvement to his property. As a business person, he believes that these proposed upgrades will provide the ever more demanding student housing market with the amenities that it desires. This, in turn, makes Mr. Stauffer's apartments a more desirable place to live. In order to compete with Mr. Stauffer's upgrades, the other landlords in the neighborhood will be prompted to improve their properties. The net result will likely improve the quality of life for High Street/Congress Street residents. The alternative of not allowing owners to improve their properties is a recipe for economic and physical decay. I have known and conducted business with Mr. Stauffer for 20 years. In his dealings with me, he has always been an honest man of his word. If he tells you he's going to install 90-plus efficiency furnaces, 13 SEER air conditioners, and upgrade the wiring, he will. In conclusion, Mr. Stauffer's proposed improvements are, as I see it, definitely not a more objectionable non-conforming use. I implore you to allow Mr. Stauffer to make his proposed improvements. Leon Hoshauer, Ph.D., CPA. The next letter is from Mr. Melvin Stedman. He lives at 84 Sunnyside Drive. He's a former code director in the city of Athens, and in all honesty, is my next-door neighbor. I would like to support Mr. Stauffer in his request to upgrade his apartment building at 19 South Congress Street. Mr. Stauffer has some of the best-maintained apartments in Athens. Mr. Stauffer is not changing the use or enlarging the use. He is only wanting to upgrade this apartment building for the health and safety of his tenants. Respectfully, Melvin Stedman. I have one last letter. This is from Edward and Sally Robe, 19 Roosevelt Drive in Athens. Members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. We purchased the property in about 1970 from the previous owners, Earl Bridgewater and Dr. Patton, and I believe a third owner whose name I don't recall. In any event, I would like to provide you with some background information on the property. While we owned the property from 1970 until we sold it to Jack Stauffer in June of 1998, we maintained the property but did no major renovations or remodeling. There was 12 one-bedroom apartments and 8 parking places. We have talked with Jack at times over the years, and he has told us of his renovations and improvements to the front building, which, when we owned the property, it had 4 apartments. We understand from Jack and viewed his documentation that he had asked for and was granted approval to renovate the front building and has completed those improvements in the front building. Work was done in the summer of 2004 and completed in the summer of 2007 with new mechanical systems. In regards to the 2 back buildings, they were built in the late 40s or early 50s, and Jack, like my wife and I, maintained the property but did not upgrade it. The property in question is in need of improvements, updates, and redecoration, as old electric, heating, and plumbing are around 50 years old, and Jack, who I have known for 25 to 30 years, is anxious to update his property. While he has had new windows installed to increase efficiency, he wishes to continue his improvements by adding new wiring, plumbing, heating, cooling, washers, dryers, and dishwashers. To combine on the first floor the existing 2 one-bedroom apartments, which have very small kitchens and bathrooms and utility rooms, which will allow enough room to enlarge the kitchens and bath to accommodate high-efficiency washers, dryers, and dishwashers, and do the same on the second floor. There would seem to be no negative impact on adjacent property owners or the city in general. To the contrary, this would make the property more efficient and safe for future tenants. Respectfully, Mr. and Mrs. Edward Robe. I'm here to defend my property rights this evening. Without the ability to upgrade my property, the government will be condemning me to owning substandard housing. I have pride in my property. I want to be able to be proud of my property and not worry about what may break down or go wrong next. I realize the code is a good thing. I currently meet the code, but I have 50-year-old buildings. My goal is not to meet the code, but meet the market, which with all the newer properties prompts me, along with my health and safety concerns, to improve the property. Again, we are not asking for a change of use. We are not asking for a change of occupancy. We are not asking to increase density, only to be allowed to bring the property up to today's standards for the same number of people. There will be no change in the footprint. The building will look exactly the same from the outside, except we will tuck point the walls, we will paint the outside, and we will install a new roof. The current allowable occupancy in that building is 8. At our June meeting, when we were in reference to the middle building, which also had legal occupancy of 8, we, the board and myself, decided that it would be a concession on my part and more logical that we'd reduce the number of allowable residents in that middle building from 8 to 4, and that's what we did. And I have absolutely no objection to making that same concession to the building that we're about ready to undertake the same exact renovations, should I convince you people to let me do so this evening. To me, this seems to be the most logical. As stated in 230502, substitution for a nonconforming use of another not more objectionable nonconforming use may be made. I realize this is where the code book and common sense come together. Again, I'm here to defend my property rights, and I want to encourage you to give me relief. Change seems to be the key word here. I asked the code office to show me the definition of change. There's not one written down, so it's interpretation. The past administration's interpretation allowed me to get a building permit without hiring an architect and without consulting a lawyer, and so I feel like I've been run through the ringer in June and again in September, costing myself several extra dollars. I understand you're thinking, well, that's the price of doing business. Well, it is, but, well, it shouldn't be. I had the 12 one-bedroom apartments, and I'm just seeking to reconfigure them to make them updated and safe. I believe there's a difference between change. If you paint a wall, you've got change. But does it affect anybody? Does it hurt anybody? Is it significant? Is it a detriment? These are the things we need to consider. These are things that they aren't considering downstairs.
Mrs. Stoffer, could I interrupt for a minute to
Yes,
ask
ma'am.
a question? You just said that when we approved your request to substitute the use for a not more objectionable use the last time you were here, we specified with your agreement that the total number of legal occupants would be 4, 1 per apartment, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you're willing to have that happen tonight, to limit those apartments to 1 person each?
Yes, the back rear building, the proposed project in the future
in the
that is
back
now legally 8, I
Okay.
would agree could now legally be 4.
Okay, so if you have 4 there at the back and 4 in the middle, and what's in the front? Have we just not gotten to that one yet? or-
That's already done.
It was
That's
done
done,
under the
okay.
previous administration.
And how many people in that one?
How many people are physically in
front?
it? There
No,
are physically 4 people in it. It is physically legal for 7.
Okay, all right. So I guess what I'm saying is we've still got on this piece of paper we're looking at tonight, it says for the 3 buildings, it would be a total of 23, but
I
that
know,
can't
and I
be
didn't
right.
want, I didn't want to say that that was wrong, because I didn't want you to say it was advertised wrong, because I didn't want to have to go through all this crap
Well, okay,
again.
but if in our proposal tonight, if we said you had legally possibly 7 in the front and 8 in the others, it really we should make a variance or a proposal that suggests 15 with 8 parking spaces as opposed to the 23. Is that reasonable?
That would be proper and what reality
Proper and
is.
reasonable, okay. So it'd be 15 tenants max in the 3 buildings, 4 in the one you're proposing tonight. So we would need to change this to 15 overall tenants with 8 parking spaces, which looks better overall, don't you think?
That would be fine with me, yes, ma'am.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Right now, I have old, outdated apartments. I could let them go and continue to grow older, less safe, less desirable, but that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is make my property safer, more attractive, more presentable, more rentable, something I can not worry about something going wrong or somebody, being injured by backed up drains or carbon monoxide. I'm going to get the gas out of the last building so that we won't have any possibility of gas leaks or carbon monoxide. And as I proposed the last time when I was here, at the end of next summer, not this summer, at the end of next summer, with your permission, after I've renovated that back building, I can take out a big old gas regulator and reconfigure my parking lot and squeeze in another parking spot or two, which I think we came to a agreement on, as well as we came to an agreement on me placing 1 or 2 trees
Yeah.
and/or shrubbery, of which I will do at the end of next summer also, because it doesn't make sense to do it this year, because I'm going to be digging it all up next year to put in new
Right.
underground.
So we'll have that
Lines.
gas regulator removal be part of the statement that we will be voting on this evening then.
Yes, ma'am?
And is there anything else new that we need to discuss this evening, or are we about ready to make it?
Unless you think I need to add some more information for you, I've got more I can add. Like I told you, I dug up a case that was similar, and last time you
Yeah.
said you didn't think we needed to get into that, so
No,
we don't need to get into that if we don't need to get into that.
No, I think that we have what we need to be able to make our decision, and you have what you need in case it does need to go to another entity to make another decision than we make this evening. But I think we have everything that's needed, both of us do.
All righty.
Okay. All right, does anybody have questions for Mr. Stouffer?
Well, I have one question. I'm not sure how relevant it is, but it's a curiosity. If you're remodeling from 4 specific units to 2 units, did each one of the 4 units have a water meter? And will they now have 2, or was it 1 meter combined for the whole building?
Okay. When I renovated the front house in the summer of '04 and '07, I put in, there was 3 apartments, or there was 4 apartments. I combined it. I made it 3 apartments. I then went to the city water department, met with Nick Joseph, and put in 3 separate water meters for the 3 separate units in the front house. This summer, when I renovated the middle building and reduced it from 4 apartments to 2 apartments, well, let me back up a second. The water service to the front house comes off Congress Street, and that's where we put in 3 new meters to separate for the 3 new apartments. The 2 buildings in the back, the one that's renovated and the one that's going to be renovated, are run off 1 meter that feeds from High Street. So what I did when I did the middle building was I separated out all the water lines and ran 2 new water lines outside the building, X number of feet, and that's where they are right now. My plan, when I do this building next summer, with your blessing, is I'm going to run 2 separate lines from the building I just renovated out to High Street, as well as I'm going to run 2 separate water lines from the back building out to High Street. And I've already met with Nick Joseph about making the manifold to get the 4 meters. So, of course, the cable is all separate, the phone is all separate, the electric is all separate, and at the end of next summer's project, yes, The water lines will be all separate and metered separately and billed separately.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, then. Thank you very much for the presentation. You'll probably have an opportunity to speak again if there's a rebuttal required. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of Mr. Stover's application, or in general comment, or in opposition? If there is not, then you won't need a rebuttal, so the commentary from the floor will be closed at this time. And before we have our discussion and render our decision, I see that Mayor Weil is here this evening, and we're ready to have a ceremony. We're going to do swearings in. We've never done swearings in on TV before.
I'll speak from here, and I'll swear in each of you one at a time there. And I apologize for not getting to this earlier. Looking at the dates, I realized we were going to do this last month in August, but since you never met, I didn't do it. Fortunately, Joni got in touch with me, so I scrambled this. Okay, I'll start with Joni. Repeat after me. Repeat after me. I, Joan Kornansky,
I, Joan Kornansky.
do solemnly swear
Do solemnly
that I will
swear.
support the Constitution of the United States of America
To support the Constitution of the United States of America.
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
And the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
And I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
as a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I guess it should be as, right? Okay. To which I've been appointed for the term ending, go ahead, for which I've
To
been
which
appointed.
I've been appointed.
To have the term ending August 11th, 2011.
For the term ending August 11, 2011.
We're shorting you 1 month, I hope you don't mind.
It's okay.
Okay. How about you, Lisa? I, Lisa
Welcome
Carson,
aboard.
Thank you.
I, Lisa Carson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly
that I
swear
will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals,
as or of a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals,
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed,
for the term ending August 11th, 2011.
to the term ending August 11th, 2011.
Okay.
And welcome to you.
And congratulations, and thank you all and thank you as a citizen board for doing all the work here. It's amazing. I've been on the board, and I know what troopers you are to do all this. And I'll have you sign these, and then you can do your deliberation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Kind of sign them, and I'll get you copies tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
That's quite a signature there. Now you just have to decide who votes as an alternate now.
We've already figured that one out.
Oh, okay. We pretty much had time. Sorry about that. As I said, I expected fully to do this last month.
Well, actually, they are, in reality, both of them are alternates, because our other member, who is currently on leave, is still the member, but it's going to work out pretty much that one or the other is going to be pretty much full-time for about a year. But,
Because
yeah.
Michelle's off.
Yeah, because Michelle is on leave of absence for the year.
I'll let you get back to your process.
Well, thank you very much. So, newly and duly done. We are now ready to deliberate, unless somebody would like to make a proposal for a motion for us to consider. All right, shall we?
Well, we have some extra wording we need to put in,
Yeah, we do. Several extra wordings.
several things.
Yeah. We do want to mention that the reduction to 4, and we also want to mention the parking, and we also want to mention the gas regulator that is to be removed so that he can try to find another parking place. It will probably, it looked likely anyway, last time I looked, that we'd be able to have at least 9 spaces out there when that regulator was moved. So,
What about the trees and the shrubs, or was
We
that
talked about that last time.
inserted
and-
last time?
Right,
Yeah.
and we strongly suggested. I
well,
don't know
he's
whether-
waiting to get your lilacs that you offered
Oh,
him, too.
right.
Yes.
You haven't been to my house for those lilacs, have you?
Well, he can't do it until he actually gets
All
it
right,
done.
I've still got them. It's getting bigger and bigger with more
Well, I'm saying,
children. Okay.
I didn't think there was any sense to plant anything this year,
Right.
because I'm gonna have to dig it all up next year to put in new water lines.
Okay.
And drain
All right,
lines
so
and
I'll
so
save,
on.
I'll save them for you. I'll put your name on them.
I'll put in whatever you guys say.
Okay. All right.
All right, yeah. Yes, we did have, that might be well to have in the
Okay.
motion.
Okay. I can do all that. Okay, I'm going to move that the board recognize that renovating the rear building at 19 South Congress, which is one of 3 buildings on the lot, will constitute a substitution of a non-conforming use for a not more objectionable use, with the condition that the building have now 2 units with 2 tenants each for a total of 4 tenants, and this would be a change from the 4 units that now exist, and that the property as a whole not have more than 15 total tenants with a total of 9 parking spaces, one of which should be created by moving a gas meter, and that landscaping as agreed upon by the property owner and the board be completed in the spring of 2009.
Or-
Late summer.
Late summer 2009?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be all next summer.
Okay, summer-
renovating the back
end
building,
of summer
tearing up the
2009,
parking lot, putting in
okay.
new pipes and
Okay,
putting
can we say by
back.
August 2009?
By September the 1st, I gotta be done.
Okay,
So
September the
that's about
1st,
the time the
2009.
landscaping will be done.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Was there anything else?
It just changed that meter to regulator,
Regulator.
because it's not really a
a
meter. It's that
regulator,
great big
a
thing that's in that
gas regulator.
building out there on the Congress Street. or
Again,
Congress
so there
Boulevard.
would be a total of no more than 15 tenants on the property with a total of 9 parking spaces. Okay.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Great. All right. I just want to say that I did have the opportunity to go and take a look at the work that was done on the middle building and all of the things that he told us. This is a beautiful building, complete to hardwood floors.
Great.
It's absolutely a place that I think that, well, I met the young ladies who are living there. They were really thrilled to be in it. And it is definitely an upgrade to that particular housing stock.
And we will have more parking, fewer tenants, and
Right.
an upgraded property.
An
complete
upgraded
with
property,
lilacs,
yep.
So that's great.
Okay,
Yes, all in favor?
okay.
This isn't all in favor with that, plea, as opposed to
No, no.
findings.
We don't have findings for this,
Right.
no, there aren't any findings for this. It's
Anything
just a
else to
matter of
discuss?
anything else that we need to discuss at this time. And, oh, for the record, the person who was just sworn in, of the 2 who were just sworn in, who will be the voting member in this particular case, is Joan Kronowski. So, but any commentary, any time that we have a case that you're, even if you're not a voting member that evening, you're to chime in with questions and comments. All right. I'm ready. I don't think I have anything further to ask or say. Is everybody else ready? Everybody? Okay, I'm going to start with you.
I'm in favor.
Yes.
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 And I too am in favor. So you have a unanimous decision for going ahead and making the other building as wonderful as the middle one is. It really is a fine job that you've done, and I think that, I hope your tenants are as pleased as they should be. So. Okay, Our next case this evening is one for 71 Maplewood Drive. And this, could you give us then the specifics for the refusal of this case? This one, I believe, is one that Ms. Kornansky is going to recuse herself because she has a conflict of interest, so our other new member is going to be our voting member on this particular case.
I forgot to mention in the first case I've been sworn into.
Yes.
It's pretty straightforward. Mr. Howard had a deck on the back of his house, and he wanted to replace it, but with the new deck, the total lot coverage would be 36%, which is more than the 30% allowed.
But he's not going to make it any larger than the original deck that he's
No,
removing?
he's replacing what was there.
Just replacing what was there. What was there was an uncovered deck. Is he replacing it with an uncovered deck? It looked as if he was going to
I think in
cover
the
it.
drawing there, or the sketch on near the back there, that it's going to have a roof over it, looks like a good deal of it.
Okay, so that would make it a different, that would make it different than what was, it's not a simple replacement.
Yeah,
then.
but the lot coverage was computed the
The
same.
lot coverage stays the same. Okay. Okay, any questions? Nope. Nope. Thank you very much. All right, then, who's representing Mr. Howard this evening, or is it? Thank you. You state your name and address for the record, and please affirm that you previously were sworn.
Hi, my name is Will Deaton, and I live at 108 Sunnyside Drive, and I was previously sworn in
Thank you.
tonight. My company is Stalwart Construction, and Steve Howard is my client, and we have since May been trying to build his deck. Exact same lot coverage as before. The picture makes the covered part look bigger than it really is. It's probably a bad aspect. But we're just trying to cover his back door where he enters, where he brings his groceries in. So basically he has an unbroken line from his car into his house so he can get into his back door.
I see, okay. So it isn't really going to cover the entire back deck.
Gosh, no.
It's just going to cover, just be a little sort of an overhang above the steps.
Almost an awning, but far enough out so that it needs posts
Got
for
it,
support.
okay.
And none of the neighbors have seen any problem with it because it's going to be the exact same size, same height off the ground. And right now, the deck that is there is derelict, and so we feel like this can only improve the neighborhood.
Can you tell us the size of the deck?
The size? It's 10 by 20.
10 by 20. And so I assume that the deck that's now there, that's derelict, is also 10 by 20?
Mhm. Yep, we're going off the exact same footprint. I mean, all the posts are going to be the same pace. The handrail is going to
You're going to put the steps up where the old steps were torn off
Yep.
and everything?
Everything's going to be exactly the same. It's just going to be new and not so
Not
disgusting.
falling apart.
Exactly.
Right.
Do you have the dimensions of the roof?
Yes. I believe we had them stated as 5 by a diagonal 8.
Oh, diagonal 8, got it.
Yeah, so probably coming out about 6 feet with the pitch. So it'll cover the full of the stairs as they go into the house.
Okay. Yeah, that would make them a lot safer in the winter. Okay. Okay, anybody else have any questions? No?
I have a comment.
Please.
The letter to us says, not having a deck would make the house stand out against all other houses on the street, which have decks, which is to say that all the houses on Maplewood have decks. I live on Maplewood. I walk down the street. I look for the number of decks. There are very few decks on Maplewood. I have no objection to this one, but you
Yeah.
should write things that are true rather than things that are not.
My apologies, that wording is bad. I should say many decks, or at least a few.
A few decks.
Few. What was your final count?
What?
What was your final count on Maplewood? What did
Well,
you do?
sometimes you can't quite see into somebody's backyard. There are far
Maybe
fewer.
we'd never let that stand in our way before.
There are no decks around me at my end of the street except one across the street. And as I walk down, I would assume that most houses did not have a deck. So, okay, this one could have one if it's in the right place, but this, not everybody has a deck.
I'm sure the next deck that I build, I'll have to come back to the variance board
Okay,
for it,
all
so
right,
I'll write that
okay.
in.
Count them next time.
Okay.
Just curious, what software did you use to plot this?
That's SketchUp. It's free from Google.
Oh, okay.
It's
Thank
a
you.
lot less than AutoCAD.
Well, I'll go find out. Excuse me just a second. I have to find out whether I
Other
have an
questions?
emergency. I'll be right
Other
back.
questions? Well, I'm just going to take Muriel's place. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
I don't believe that this is granting any special privilege or, or making the neighborhood look worse. It's not an
Okay.
eyesore.
And do you all have questions for Mr. Deaton?
No.
Okay. So we'll thank you and see if there's anything that you need to say later.
Okay, thank you.
So now we'll see, is there anybody here who wants to speak in favor of this replacement deck? Anybody who wants to speak in general comment? Anybody who wants to speak against this replacement deck? Okay.
But it's turned off now.
Okay, we're at
I
the place
apologize.
where we're asking if anybody wants to speak against, and apparently there is no one who wants to speak
No one to speak against? Well, then, commentary from the floor is closed, and we're ready to deliberate and render our decision. And this is a variance, so we'll need a motion to grant the variance. Who would like to craft it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I move to grant the variance from section 2311, table A, to property 71 Maplewood Drive, a schedule of bulk controls to permit the residential alteration with the lot coverage of 36%, where 30% is the permitted maximum.
I'll second that.
All right. This is to permit a deck that is no greater in size than the one that's being replaced. Do we want to state that anywhere? Or
I don't think we need to.
we don't need to? Okay. Any comment that we need to make about the coverage? It needs to be an uncovered deck, with the exception of the small cover over the
Maybe John
stairs?
could add that as a condition.
Could you add that as a condition, that the deck remain uncovered with the exception of the small area above the, just above the doorway to,
Yes.
okay. We're going to make that small amendment. Okay. All right. Do we have a second for the amended
I
motion?
second it again.
Second again, okay. All right then. What is the practical difficulty or undue hardship that would be specific to this piece of property? He had a deck already, and it's falling down?
Well, he's maintaining the same footprint, and to decrease it, to satisfy the permitted percentage, you'd have to have a smaller deck.
Yeah, well,
So he
it
simply
wouldn't be
wants to
possible to have
replace
much
the-
in the way of a deck at all if he
The deck
did
that he
it.
has.
Okay.
No, because these are, as we know, small lots,
Mhm.
so.
Are there exceptional circumstances, well, pertaining to this property that don't imply two properties in the same zoning district?
Well, no, but all the lots are small, and so, as Mr. Lavelle said, trying to build a deck back there of any proportion at all would not be possible. And this is simply a replacement.
Okay. would literal interpretation of the code deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same vicinity? That would be under the preservation of equal property rights. Well,
Only a few have decks.
some others have decks. I'm among them. I have a deck.
I counted yours.
Yeah, you did. Oh, good. Okay. Oh, it wasn't just that?
No, I counted the whole street.
Okay. I consider that to be, a fairly standard property right, even though there are many people on Maplewood who do not have decks. Part of the problem on Maplewood is that our houses are all up high off the ground, and to get down to your yard, you sometimes need a little transitional zone. That's what ours does for us. But anyway, okay, on to minimum variance. Would this variance be the minimum to make reasonable use of the property? And the property use in this case, I guess, be the backyard. It's fairly
Or the
minimal
size
just to
of the
replace
building,
what's
yeah.
already there. Okay. And not of a general nature, would this variance be something so general or recurring in nature that the situation would be more reasonably handled by changing the law?
No.
No. Okay. All right, then. Then we're ready to vote. I'm going to start from the other end. Lisa, how say you?
I vote to grant the variance.
Yes.
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 And I too feel that it's appropriate, so the variance is granted. Okay, moving right along then. We have, the next case is for a temporary use permit. It's case number 0822T for 30 Westfield Place. And Cecilia Hansen is the appellant, but I believe is being represented this evening. Would you, Paul, give us the specifics for why we're here this evening hearing this case?
Okay, just a brief history of this case. Ms. Hansen originally came to the board in 2006 and asked for a variance to have 3 people in a rental unit with 2 parking spaces, one of them non-accessible. That variance request was turned down. However, the board later did give her a temporary use permit for 1 year for that. That was in 2006. In 2008, a couple months ago, she came back to the board and again asked for a variance, this time to have 2 people there with 2 parking spaces, one of which was not accessible, and the rule is both of them have to be accessible. The board turned her down, but did recommend that she come back and seek to get a temporary use permit. So that's why she's here. It's the same circumstances. She's requesting to have 2 people there with 2 parking spaces, even though one of them is not accessible. That's something that's peculiar to the R3 zone that she's in.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, just one question. If we grant the permit, that would be for 1 year, am I correct?
The temporary use permit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then not renewable for another year maybe, or is it just?
Well, according to the rules, as I understand them, you can renew temporary use permits for up to 36 months.
Okay.
So I would assume if you give it for 1 year, then they have to come back. I don't know if the board, I don't think the board is allowed to give a temporary use permit for 36 months flat out. I think it's 1 year at a time.
Okay.
And we can't do a 1-year permit with an automatic renewal clause or something like
It's not
that.
as if she's going to be the North Pole. Surely she
Yeah.
will come back to Athens.
Well, she'll
because
want to
she
come
is
back and take a
nice.
look at
Sure.
her property periodically,
Right.
so, okay. That's,
Thanks.
I guess, any other questions? No, then, thank you. All right, and
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Attorney Mike Miller represents Cecilia Hansen, place of business at 19.5 South Court Street. I guess as just a preliminary matter, and I'm not sure how the board wants to deal with this, I believe Ms. Kronansky testified in '06. I'm not sure how you want to do that. I could be mistaken, but I think that she was one of the ones who testified that evening. So I'm not sure if you want her to participate in,
On
Testified-
Westerfield, I can't imagine.
I could be wrong. My recollection was that that's.
Not one of my concerns out of my neighborhood area, so
Okay.
I don't know.
uh-huh,
I mean,
I could be mistaken.
okay.
My recollection was.
If you don't
but-
have any recollection of having
Yeah, I'd say no.
testified, then I can't imagine how it would
Okay.
affect the way you
Right.
listen to this case. Okay.
I just wanted to bring bring that up just in case.
I had
Okay.
a map quest to find the place. I didn't even know where it was.
Okay,
So-
all right, thank you.
Just briefly to remind the board, I know four of the board members were present earlier this summer when the case was initially heard, but I know all the members weren't. Again, I represent Cecilia Hansen. At the time that this issue arose, she was a medical student here at the university. Since that time, she has started her residency in New York in emergency medicine. Her desire ultimately is to return to the Athens area to begin a practice and teach at the Ohio University College of Medicine. Right now, she owns the property at 30 Westfield Place. Her desire is to return to that, but she wants to keep that property active in the meantime. As the code is written, there's no way for her to rent out that property without a variance or temporary permit of some nature. Minimum of 2 parking spots up to the number of residents who are located there. Again, as Paul indicated, this came before the board as a variance request that was turned down, and now we're seeking a temporary use permit, temporary rental permit, to allow her to make some use of the property while she is in New York. In looking at the property, I'm not sure how many of the members were able to go out there. There's not really any ability of hers to create additional parking on the scene, on the site, without making it an eyesore in the neighborhood. And even then, I'm not sure that she can, without variances, put additional parking in. My understanding is there are some utility meters right close to the driveway, which could perhaps even outright prevent an expanded driveway to the back to pave over some parking. So the possibility of putting in additional parking is not there. In addition, given the nature of the community, she doesn't have available to her the opportunity to lease out off-site parking to satisfy that one additional parking spot that she's needing. Again, her desire is to have up to 2 people. Right now, she has a desire to have 1 person in there. That, of course, could change on a yearly basis depending upon the desires of that tenant. But her desire is at this point in time to have 1 person in there, not even, I don't believe, covering the entirety of the mortgage payment, but just in order to assist her in making that. I believe that having a tenant in there would be a betterment for the community as a whole. I think that, and most people I think would agree, that having somebody there on a regular basis, taking care of the property, having somebody live there is much better than having an empty house with perhaps relatively ragged yard and the other signs that come with having a vacant house. So having this tenant in there, I think would be a positive for the community. In addition, at most there's going to be 2 people in there. From the fall of '06 until the summer of '07, when she initially had her temporary use permit granted previously, there were individuals living there. I believe 2 people were living there. At no time were any concerns over additional traffic raised to her or as far as I know, the code enforcement office. No complaints were made to Ms. Hansen. The reason that temporary permit was not extended beyond that period of time was Ms. Hansen returned to the Athens area. She was gone for a short time and then she returned. So she made the house back to owner occupied, so there was no need to renew the permit. So her desire now is to get the temporary permit, and she would have to make arrangements in the future to reapply for the renewal. Let's see, last time we heard the case, back when it was a variance request, there was only 1 member of the community who spoke out at the hearing, and I'm not sure if the board members remember. Mr. Slago actually spoke out, and he actually spoke out in favor of the variance request. I have not heard of any other additional people who have spoken out against the variance or the temporary permit. And my understanding is that it's neutral or in favor of, although I've not actually spoken to any of the community members. There are apparently a number of houses in that development which are rented out. They were a little luckier as far as the parking situations. They didn't need to come to the board for a variance or a temporary use permit. Ms. Hanson wasn't so lucky, and she does require the temporary permit in order to utilize the property. Again, without a temporary use permit, she's not able to make any use of the property at all. Again, she's going to be in New York for approximately 4 years, and without being able to put a renter in there, the only two available uses for the property would be vacancy or to sell the property. And selling is not a use of the property, it's a disposition of the property. Again, I don't believe that the community would be harmed in any way by the granting of the variance. And in fact, I believe the community would be better off for having some renters in there, some tenants in there.
You just mentioned the variance. This is not a variance.
Right.
So, yeah.
The temporary permit. I'm sorry if I misspoke.
That's okay.
Well, does anybody have any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor or in general comment or in opposition? And in that case, then the commentary is closed and we're ready to deliberate. Would someone like to?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, if Paul said you can only have temporary use issued for 36 months, if she's already had 1 year.
This is a new
This is a
request.
whole new request. This was
Okay.
from a previous time that she had that other request. And she's resided there since then, and now she's going
Okay.
away again,
That
right?
temporary use was for 3 people with 2 spaces. This is for 2 people.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
that was another.
So you could renew this 1,
Yeah.
2, 3 times for a period of 36 months. She'll be gone for 4
Yep,
years.
That's going to
Well,
be a
and
problem
she
at the
will
end
have
of
to
4 years.
come back and do something about it, or have Mr. Miller or somebody else come and represent her at the end of each year, because it's really only for a year,
Mhm.
renewable up to 36 months.
Correct.
So what she will have is a permit that will take her until next September, and then she'll be back again, unfortunately for her and everyone, but that's the way it's written in, so that's the way it needs to happen.
And I'd like to make a condition possibly that, based on the letter, that we limit it to only 1 tenant. That the letter stated that she has a tenant lined up.
Well,
Well, she does have one now.
but you don't know that.
But
that
we don't have
tenant
any way
is
of
going
knowing
to
that that one's
remain.
gonna stay.
So,
Well, it says for several years.
Well, her expectation is that she will
Expectations are for a number of years.
rent for a number of years, but
But the
That's-
thing
I
that we
don't know
have
that that's a
before us
contract.
is for 2 tenants, and you're suggesting that, but she's not actually here. Mr. Miller's here for her, so we would have to ask if she would be
If you
willing
would
to do
accept
that.
one.
yeah, without her being here to ask, I don't,
I don't really object to the 2 on a temporary basis myself.
I have a question. Doesn't the request presuppose that there are 2 tenants if she needs 2 parking spaces
no. Any rental requires 2 parking spaces.
for visitors, or?
It's
I'm
just the
not,
way the code
it's just the way it's
Code.
written.
All houses now require 2 parking spaces, no matter what.
Not if
Rental
you,
unit with 1 person needs 2 spaces, a rental unit with 2 people needs 2 spaces, then 3 and 3, 4 and 4.
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
But you basically start with 2.
It could very well be the reason behind it, is to have an extra space there in case of company. I don't know the exact reason behind it, but that's what they do.
Right, and the problem here is that she's in an R1 district, and R1 districts do not allow for stacked parking, one behind the other, which is
R3.
R3, what did I
Yeah,
say?
1.
Okay, R3, so that's what's got her really in a
Yeah.
bind, is the R3 thing.
If she were in R1, she would have no
She would
problem.
be fine. She could
Right.
use it.
And if the rules of her area were different, but they've got their own contract that they've set it up, so there really isn't any way that she can provide parking other than what's already there. She is sort of in a bind.
There were, I did notice, just down, I guess it would have been to the left of her condominium unit, there were those pull-in spots. There were
Yeah.
2 or 3 of them, and I wonder who controls those, or if they're for...
That's,
I believe it's just public parking.
it's public parking, but it's not rentable. She can't rent it for herself.
Okay.
Can't count for them.
Yeah. It's there for people to visit, but on a temporary basis.
Because there was no signage, no one was parked on the street, so there's no signage that said no parking allowed.
No.
And
I don't think they have a parking problem there, but the, whatever you call those kinds of contracts
Well,
that you...
the deed restrictions,
Deed
is that what it
rest-
is? Deed restrictions,
Is
I mean,
it-
the whole area,
yeah.
the development.
The
has
development
these deed
has
restrictions.
a contract that everyone who moves into that development signs, and that they understand that what they can and can't do. And I believe one of the things is that they can't rent those parking places out. I don't have it, I'm just trying to remember it from last time, but it seems to me that's what I recall from last time. Yeah.
So we just have to go through some findings. I mean, they're not the usual ones, but we have to look at.
This is
It's
a temporary use permit,
So we
and,
have certain sort of conditions to look at.
yeah, we don't have, it's not a conditional use, but
It's a temporary use.
conditionally permitted and temporary is, John, do you have, let's see, permitted uses.
Section.
Okay, wait. 230801A.
This one,
I see 2308. 2304. 6. 6.
here it is, if you
7.
want.
Which one?
No, right here.
Good, okay. You've got one that doesn't have screeches all over it. I like that.
No.
Any report? 230801. Okay. Each off-street parking space shall have an area of not less than,
Okay,
yeah,
but it's not really it, is it?
no.
Well, that's to prevent occupancy of a dwelling by 2 tenants with 1 accessible and 1 non-accessible. But it doesn't say what we're supposed to talk about
How we
with a
need
temporary
to,
use
how we
permit.
need to address
It's
a
a different-
temporary use permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we need to,
What are we supposed to look at for temporary uses?
I think we're supposed to,
You're just supposed to consider several
we're
things.
supposed to consider it. I don't think that.
I don't think we have a list
Okay.
to consider the way we
What
have.
we discussed this the first time, and we suggested the idea last time,
Right.
so might as well just go on without voting.
We need to make sure that all of the
Oh,
regulations will be,
230702D at the bottom of page 23-20 on temporary structures and uses.
2D?
Yeah. 230702D. BZA may permit the temporary use of structures or premises, provided that the BZA finds such use to be of a temporary nature, not to be involved in the erection of a substantial structure, and to be unlikely to cause substantial detriment to the public.
Oh, So,
So I think we can just
Okay.
discuss
Okay.
those with that.
okay,
No. Will
Well-
safeguard public health, safety, morals, and general welfare?
okay. So
Yeah.
she's not constructing anything?
She's not,
And it's not going to bother anything?
Was an
no
objection.
longer,
And
okay,
it
and
is
here
going to be
it's no more
temporary.
than 12 months. Just as an extension may be granted after considering for no more than 36 months.
Right.
Yeah,
That's where that
okay.
is. Okay.
This is a new one, so,
Okay,
for 2.
okay, so do we have a motion?
Okay. Who would like to make the motion granting this temporary use permit?
Can I make a motion in case 02-22T, 30 Westfield Place, Zone R3. The appellant is requesting a temporary use, that we grant the appellant a temporary use permit from Section 23.08.01A to permit occupancy of a dwelling unit by 2 tenants with 1 accessible and 1 non-accessible parking space, or 2 accessible parking spaces are required.
A second?
I second.
Okay.
I would just add the small condition of 1 year.
Yes.
For 1 year.
Yeah, and, yeah, as required by the code.
And I'm sorry, you seconded it?
I second.
Okay.
Okay. This permit is revocable on application by any aggrieved person. It can be revoked also, just so everybody realizes that if for some reason somebody comes in and says, hey, they're abusing this privilege, it is a revocable permit. And that's Section D of that same ordinance.
Okay.
All right. I think we have fairly thoroughly discussed this already. Is there anything additional that we need to say apart from the fact that she's not going to be creating any structures there? She's not doing anything excepting making it possible to rent the place, and she's currently planning to only rent it to a single individual for the period of 1 year. She understands it's for 1 year only, and that she needs to get it renewed at the end of this coming year. Oh, by this time next year. Anything else?
We need to vote?
I'm ready to vote. Anybody else ready to vote? Okay.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Yes.
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 I too believe it's the right thing to do so that she can get on with her residency. So we have an unanimous decision. All right. Central Avenue, case number 0823Z. It's, the appellant needs a variance for a deck that's going to exceed setback and, yeah, it's just the setback. Okay. Is there anything beyond this? Well, please, Paul, just let us know what the situation is.
This is pretty much straightforward, too. It's just that the deck they want to put on the back of the house, it would be within 25 feet of the back property. The structure that's there is separate from the house, so it's considered an accessory structure, and it's not bound by the 30-foot setback. Accessory structures only have to be 5 feet away from the property line.
But joining that accessory structure to the back of the house is what
Yeah.
makes it then...
It's part of the house, then that rear yard setback kicks in.
I see. Yeah, okay. Couldn't figure that one out.
I don't understand the drawing at all.
No, I couldn't.
Oh,
Well,
okay,
did
well-
anybody get to go see? I've got some questions about how it's going to work, but yeah, there's a little sort of a pavilion out in the backyard, removed from the house itself. Here's the house, and there's this little pavilion, and it's with a little deck and a little building, and then there's this area between it drops down quite a bit. I mean, this is raised, and then the house itself is dropped.
I know, but then suddenly the house gets bigger, not the deck.
not the back.
Well,
the deck
well,
remains
I was
exactly the
quite
same.
confused by the drawing also.
We don't understand the problem.
But,
They'd
yeah,
probably
that's
be
what they're
able-
going to come and explain to us. But if we're actually attaching
I do,
the...
and
Yeah, I thought at first it was going to be providing more living space in the house, but it's just a deck.
well, that's what was confusing, whether we
Yeah.
were adding a structure.
Yeah. And were you previously sworn?
I was, just a little bit ago.
Would you just
Can you
hold it down?
hear me, or-
Yeah, it bends.
I will say I'm very new to the process.
Okay, so
Excuse
you
me.
can state your name and address
Heather
for the record
McDowell,
then.
21 Central.
And I think that will come down a little further if, yeah, there you go. Okay.
New to the process, I don't have much of a presentation. But simply, I think I need to clarify, we are looking to add an expansion to our home. We want to renovate our home.
Okay, that's what the letter
Yes.
sounded like, but
Yes.
the drawing,
I don't
yeah,
know.
okay, it
This
sounded...
Where the
says
confusion-
To construct a deck.
Might be
It
the
says
plans.
construct a deck, that's the thing, is that the
Oh.
way it was
That's my
advertised...
fault. That's a missed thing in there, but you can correct that at the time.
I see, okay, and the way it was advertised for the meeting, was it as a deck, or was it as a... but the letter did say that it
It was
was...
advertised as deck, but again, I think for something that you corrected during making the motion and stuff.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, it
Feeling
doesn't...
familiar.
What? You're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether it fits the,
Well, it was
There's a big difference
advertised
between
as a
and
deck,
adding a
but
house,
they're
adding a
actually
section to the
wanting...
house.
They're actually wanting an addition on the house.
It's advertised
Now,
as
it
a
makes a
deck.
lot more sense, but...
I'd just go ahead and do it. Proceed with it. I know Joe Sligo will probably say it's a problem, but
Mr. Sliger's not here, so...
So we have permission, okay.
Okay, all right. Then, yes, yes, well,
So it's really an addition.
now I understand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Addition to
I
the
couldn't
deck.
figure it out when I went and looked why, yeah.
The addition to
Please
the
explain.
setback.
Okay, well.
Makes sense now.
Now we get it.
Goodness, now I'll try to figure out what I'm trying to say. We would like to put an addition onto our home. I'm willing to compromise, put that right out there. We are just trying to get as much space as we possibly can to put on an addition to fit our family. I brought pictures, I have a letter from my immediate neighbor. I feel like I have support from other neighbors. The folks across the street are out of town, and they weren't able to write a letter before they left. Should I
Why don't you
start
just-
with pictures? Is this
Could
how
you
I?
just tell us the size of the addition to start with?
From what I'm understanding, we wanted to go out 9 feet and up, the second story. We were, from what I'm understanding, the variance only will allow us to go out 4 feet? I might
Okay.
have that wrong. So there's an additional 5 feet we'd like to work with. And I can show you pictures.
So you want to add 9 feet?
We'd like
Okay.
to work with the
And-
9 feet,
And the
but
width?
I'm willing to compromise.
The width of the house is now what?
I'm sorry?
The width of the house is 26 feet?
23?
25, oh, the width is
It's
46.
small. I'm not even
So
sure if
In
I
the
know.
front, it's kind of like a shed, it's not a building, it looks like, one of those kitchen sheds they put on the back of a house.
Yes.
Right.
It's
So
what's
like
in the
25?
rear.
Oh, yeah, excepting that what she's working with is not the shed, she's adding on to the back of the house.
Right, so it's like 9 by 26 that you're adding, and it's
I
2
think-
stories.
Joni might have been talking about the back of the home that,
Oh, I
comes out
see,
like
the way it
that.
currently
Do
is.
you want me to bring
I
these
gotcha.
up?
Yes, please.
okay. I have a picture of my family, too.
Okay.
Because we are cut out for our own home.
Okay, so
We bought
this
the home-
is
I bought the home 5 years ago, or 6, I'm sorry.
34,
as a
Yeah,
family.
and it
My girls
was
share a room, and it's not looking, I mean, we.
Well, they're big girls, they need a big,
was
they need a,
25.
yes.
And.
And the back side of it,
this
where
is
everything
what
drops
we're
down,
doing.
yeah.
Well, I have a picture of
So
that
they're
as
going to
well.
Yeah.
bring this
Yeah.
out to
See
be
how it-
even with this,
Yeah, there was this big,
and
And it does.
yeah.
And we have water problems, and
I
that's
bet
another
you
thing
do.
we want
This
to
is
address with, the
34,
renovation.
25,
Here is a
so
view
9 feet,
from,
Yeah, there's that little deck, yeah.
Yeah.
9 feet from
And,
here.
Which is,
Yeah.
and back.
okay, now I can see what you're
It's
doing.
moving closer to it.
to the deck,
But you're going to bring up
and go
this.
up. We
Yeah,
want to go out and up in the back. We're not expanding out to the side at all. And I thought one of the concerns might have been that it went to the wall, or was getting too close to the city wall. Was that a concern? Which I wanted to show, it was a tree-lined hill.
Yeah.
Where I didn't feel that there would be any major,
yeah, you've got a nice
That's
big
at the-
backyard.
That's at the back of the house.
Yeah, it's a
beyond.
beautiful tree-shaded
It is.
backyard. It's
and I
really
love my
nice.
home and I want to stay there.
Yeah.
But we are really outgrowing.
You're
Well,
not
no,
really,
Not really.
yeah. This,
Okay.
this shows, this now makes sense to me. I couldn't figure out how that was a deck, but it's not a deck, that's why it doesn't.
This looks like a
So,
platform.
you're
It
going
is
to
a platform.
expand your
Sit here,
house
just-
back,
I went
and then you don't want to attach it to the
to the
deck?
west side.
That wasn't the original thought.
To the west side, let's go around the back and look back into the
That will
yard.
make it more
This doesn't
complicated,
look
won't
like
it?
12
Because
feet.
then
Yeah.
the
We'd have to add
setback,
more.
then the
And it doesn't
setback
look
would
like
only be a
12
few
feet here
feet back
either.
here.
Oh, that's a good question.
So
If this
is
attaches to
measuring
the house, it
12,
becomes part of
but-
the house. And then instead of asking for a
So I'm
25-foot
having,
setback,
Got
you're
it,
asking for
got
like
it,
10
yeah.
foot
According to these
Yeah.
measurements,
Excepting,
this
this
is
is
12,
the
and they're
they've got a very
doing
That's
Uh,
right.
backyard.
And a large front
an
yard.
additional
Yeah.
9,
So-
that would leave 3 feet here, but this,
Okay.
I went to west and
Oh, did
looked
you?
from the back of
Okay.
west onto the yard, so I wouldn't, I mean, I didn't know it was you, but I know her. I didn't know whose house it was. I didn't want to invade the property, so I thought, well, I'll just go
Oh, I
west and look
invaded.
down over
Your
the hill.
doggies were very good.
Really?
Yes.
And I looked down, and it didn't, from what I can see from back there, this didn't look like 12 feet from the deck to the back of the house.
I don't know.
Okay.
But we're not measuring from the deck.
Well,
We're
that's-
measuring from the back of the house.
That is correct, but they're using that measurement to talk, it's just, I just thought it was odd, because it looked like
They're
maybe
using
it was
from the
5
back of the
feet.
house. Well, what they're using here is from the back of the new addition, which would be 25 feet, and the deck is an accessory, so you're not measuring from it. Are we talking
Yeah.
the same language here?
Well, it does say here
Yes.
from the back of the current back of the house.
The back of the
to-
current back of the house is 34 feet, and if they do the addition as
It'll be
proposed, it will be
25
25 feet.
And they need 30 feet. So they
Oh,
ask-
you're,
Oh, they're going the
okay,
other
yes,
direction.
they're going the
Yeah.
other direction.
Okay, so they just need a variance really for 5 feet of setback.
Or as much as you want to give me. I mean, we just
Well,
want.
if you're going to add this, we can't give you no more.
Right,
Oh,
right. I want more
she's
than
saying that she might go for less, but I think that wouldn't be
Right.
practical.
No, I don't think that makes sense.
That would not be
It's gonna-
practical.
From what I understand, it's going to be so much money. Well, we've already got, a loan, and if we're going to go out 4 feet.
So your
that's
new
so much
house
more.
would be,
Yeah.
instead of 26 by 25, you're wanting to add 9 feet?
They want 9 feet.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty
it.
minimal.
Very straightforward, really.
That's the thing you're talking about?
Yes,
You're just asking for a different setback.
Yeah,
could be, could have
okay,
been.
Yeah.
I
The
understand.
perspective from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you're going up. That's good. I hope you can address that
Can I do
little
that?
trough down
Could
there.
I- could I see you?
Yes.
My family?
Yeah, I just want to see all the pictures. Yeah, sure, I want to see your family. Cute.
And you have a letter from a neighbor, yes, that would be good to put in the record.
This is, well,
Okay. That's nice.
That's really nice back up there.
Yeah.
should I read it?
Yes, please.
Yes.
My name is Jill Brown. I live at 17 Central Ave and own the property. Brian, Heather, that's my partner Brian, and my stepdaughters are the girls, have been wonderful neighbors. The addition they want to add to their home will not bother me in any way. In fact, I would love to see it happen so that they can continue to be my neighbors. Because our home is small, and we're
Yes. Yeah, can see
we're
that.
crunched, and we need to.
That's why I couldn't
I
figure
think we understand the situation,
out. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So-
I think we do.
There's one there.
There's one here, and if you haven't a use for them, we could put them in the record to take to keep on file. Yeah. That would be helpful. Yeah, except for the family picture, I think you want that for the album.
Oh, I'm going to keep that.
Yes, you want that for the album. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I'm so sorry. It's not my favorite picture, but it's the most recent.
Anyway, it'll look great. All right. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor, or in general comment, or in opposition? And if not, Mr. Weil.
In general comments, and I swear to tell the truth. I actually looked at this house 26 years ago in terms of trying to buy it. And it's a charming small house, but it is small. There was some sill board problems in the back, I think, when I first looked at it, which is why I think the appraiser I was working with, my father, said, don't buy it. But I say it's small. One of the unusual characteristics of this house, which was why I was attracted at the time, it sits very far in the back of the lot. which is why you're dealing with this problem right now. And I just want you to make you aware of that condition that I was looking at the time. I mean, there's something to be said for having it so far back away from Central Avenue because it is a high-trafficked area. At the same time, it does present a limitation on what you can do with the property. And I've just got my personal hat on, as I say, as a prospective buyer of this literally 26, 27 years ago.
He did not
Thank you.
introduce himself, so.
I'm Paul Weil. 3 Mary Street.
Thank you. But
he did swear.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then the commentary from the floor is closed unless we need another comment. Otherwise, it's closed, and we're ready to deliberate and render our decision. And this is something that does require a variance. So who would like to craft a variance request? Then we can go through the findings.
I can try.
Okay.
I propose that a variance from section 23.11, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls for 21 Central Avenue to permit construction of an addition, a 2-story addition with a 25-foot rear setback where 30 feet is the required minimum.
Second? Second. Okay, excellent. All right. It's been moved that we consider a variance for this property at 21 Central Avenue. And considering the findings, what is the practical difficulty pertaining to this specific piece of property?
Well, Mr. Weil has just pointed out that it is to the extreme rear of the property, which makes it difficult for them to add anything without encroaching on their current setback.
Yeah, and it is a very small place that, yeah. Okay, exceptional circumstances. Again, its position
Its
on the
location
property
on the lot, yes.
and the size of the house. And it's a pretty good sized lot for with this small house. It's really nicely. What would the literal interpretation of the code deprive the appellant of rights enjoyed by others in the same vicinity?
Yes, you should have the right to expand your property within reason.
And I don't think it's unreasonable to have a slightly reduced setback. I mean, it's not as if we're denying them any backyard, or they're
Yeah.
denying themselves any backyard at all.
It's still a nice sized backyard with
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And the minimum is this variance minimum required?
They're just
It's
asking for 9 feet.
9 feet
really.
seems pretty minimal. Okay. Would granting this variance be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties?
No.
No. They hardly will notice.
Doesn't seem likely that it would impair any purpose of the code. And general nature, would this be of a general or recurring nature that would be more reasonably handled by changing the law?
No.
No.
Okay, then. That being said, let's start from your end, Mr.
I
Lavelle.
vote yes.
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 And I too vote yes. I hope you enjoy your renovation, your addition, and, yeah. But you're about to do the fun part now. It'll be good when it's over.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, we do have, let me see, we've done several items of business. Do we have did everybody read minutes from the July 8th meeting?
No, it's not here.
Who was present for July
was
8th
here.
meeting? Did you have a
Oh, I
chance?
guess I was
I read
here.
it.
Yeah. I read them. I don't recall having seen any corrections necessary.
I move to accept the minutes.
Anybody else who read them? You second it? I'll second it, and we'll move that it's done. Okay. The minutes from the July 8th meeting have been approved. And unless there's something else we need to do?
welcoming our two new members.
Thank you. It was fun. It was the most positive meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals I have ever been to.
Well, it was pretty unanimous. So we're adjourned on that note. Thank you.